Hello and welcome, friends. Today, I want to talk to you about grease interceptors on septic systems, right? Do you need them on residential? Do you need them on commercial? What are they? What do they do? Why do they exist? All that good stuff. So let's get into it. So yesterday I posted a video about a old 1953's home that had a grease interceptor before the septic tank. Super unconventional style, right? In our area, generally you'll only find grease interceptors on properties that have commercial application, namely something that's going to be doing some kind of business with food or food production, something to that effect that has a commercial kitchen, right? So what is a grease interceptor? Well, simplest terms is it's just an additional septic tank before the main septic tank, and the sole goal of it is to capture any kind of grease, right? Well, what's the difference between a septic tank and a grease interceptor? The difference is going to be the baffle depth, right? So in a traditional, normal septic system with a normal, conventional baffle, the baffle in the back of the tank is going to go about 18 inches below the surface. And the reason why is that the scum layer in a normal septic system shouldn't really get that thick. If your scum layer is super, super thick, that means you're putting in stuff that you really ought not to be putting into your system. So in a grease interceptor, you want to have a really, really, really deep baffle, basically almost all the way to the floor. And the reason why is grease floats, right? As that grease gets introduced into the system, it'll float, it'll coagulate, and it'll start to slowly build down until eventually it starts to fill up the tank. So if you only have a baffle in the back of a grease interceptor that goes 18 inches down, and then you don't pump it but once every quarter, every other quarter, depending on how much production your facility has, right? Some people will get away with a year, some people will get away with 6 months, sometimes 2 or 3 years. It just depends on what the commercial application is. So you want to have it all the way down so that way it has space for that grease to go. And so we don't have grease working its way over into the absorption system, plugging that up, or into the septic system, or even grinder pumps, etc., right? Now, that's on commercial. On a residential, you should have a very similar setup. With residential, you should be doing roughly the same thing. However, you almost never see residential, right? So every year I do quite a few hundred inspections, between 400 to 600, depending on how the market's going, right? If I have probably that, I would say in 7 years, ballpark 3 houses that have come up with a grease interceptor. They're very rare. They don't come across very often. And the reason why is they don't really serve that much of a purpose. The amount of grease that you're going to produce as a residential homeowner, it's not really enough to make anything super beneficial, right? You're going to run into a lot of more issues with the solids like the sludge and flushable wipes than you will with grease in a septic system. So when you're putting one of those in, why would we see that there? Right? So the most common reason why I will see a grease interceptor on a house, food trucks, right? Somebody runs a food truck out of their house and they make their garage into their preparation area. And the county will force them to put in, the hood vents, the stoves, the refrigerators, and then they'll force them to put in a grease interceptor. The video yesterday was just a weird situation where the county, I guess, in 1953 told them, we want a grease interceptor. It is what it is. Now, that one was problematic because it was only 30 gallons. There was only about a foot between the inlet and the bottom of that tank. The baffle only extended 3 inches into it. And also, the outlet line, which is what was attached to the baffle, was above the inlet line. So, completely defeats the purpose of that grease interceptor. So, it really doesn't matter. That one, of course, we've got to make sure we defer to the county. Let them kind of be the ones to tell us, like, don't worry about it. You can't just make it up as you go. All right, sorry about that. We had a conversation with the neighbor as he popped up through the property while we were talking. So we're going to defer to the county on this one, right? The county is going to be the one who kind of makes that final judgment of, do you need a grease trap? Do you not need a grease trap? I would say 9.99 out of 10 times, they're going to say no, you don't need one. Unless you're doing some kind of commercial application, it really makes no sense. So with grease interceptors, you're only going to see it on commercial kitchens. The goal of it, again, is to keep the grease out of the system. It's not really something you're going to find on normal residential septic systems. Will it hurt? No. right? So if you decide that you want to put a grease interceptor on your septic system, it won't hurt nothing. In my opinion, it's kind of a waste of money and waste of time, but it's your money. You do whatever you want to do, right? Most commonly, if I see people doing grease interceptors, it'll be something that they put under the sink in the house, not necessarily something that they put outside in line with the main sewer line. And the reason why is once you put it in line, now you gotta pull a permit, and at that point, the county may say, no, you're playing with fire. We don't want you to do that at all, right? And there's not much you can do if the county tells you no. So when you're applying for a variance or a commercial application to put a restaurant or something to that effect, generally the county will also try to ask, what kind of sales volume are you thinking? Employees, customers, like what do you plan to do with the property? So that way they can kind of come with an idea of exactly how big of a grease interceptor you want. Because again, you want to have all that grease get trapped. So if you only have a 30-gallon tank, you're not gonna have enough space if you're doing $4 million in sales for a food business, right? So they want to make sure they give you an adequately sized tank, adequately sized drain fields, all that good stuff. Grease interceptors, super rare. Usually whenever I find them on residential properties, they're super old. Like for example, in Towson, which is on the north side of Baltimore area, all those old 1940s through 60s homes, for some reason, they always have them. But most of them all collapsed or have been replaced by this point, so you're not gonna find them super often. But when you do find them, it's usually right there, right? If you enjoy content like this, if you think that I've brought a little bit of value to you, please hit that like button and subscribe. I have more videos posted every day on the world of well and septic. Till next time, guys.